Now it is 8:02. We have some 80 plus participants joined in. So we will start the webinar. There are various types of risk involved in transport of dangerous goods, either by road, rail, river, or sea. What we are talking about is basis on IMDG code for sea transport. The major risk for during the carriage of dangerous goods, if it is poorly consigned or not meeting the regulations, required mandatory regulations of IMDG code, it poses a risk to the seafarers, dock workers, or whoever comes in contact with the cargo. The risk can involve exposure to poison, toxicity, explosion, fire, radioactive contamination, or the worst risk is death. In the slide, you can see the direct and indirect risk. So, IMDG code is the International Maritime Dangerous Goods Code published by International Maritime Organization. Every 2 years, the code is revised and republished, taking into consideration of the lessons learned from past accidents, also the new technological developments. When we talk about taking into consideration of past accident for revision of IMDG code, one of the most recent revision happened in 2014 edition of IMDG code, considering the accident happened on MSC Flaminia because of polymerization hazard. This is the summary of casualty and incident report submitted to International Maritime Organization in 2018. I have just highlighted certain points related to placarding, marking, documentation, and portable tanks. So in this summary list submitted to IMO, you can see portable tanks not covered by CSC convention, 0.26% of the total inspected or found. Also, some of them had serious such structural deficiencies. Mandatory regulation for dangerous goods by sea is IMDG code. The current edition is 39th edition published in 2018, which has become mandatory from 1st January 2020 for 2 years. The objective is to enhance the safety of life at sea, protection of marine environment, and to facilitate free and unrestricted movement of dangerous goods throughout the globe. When we talk about portable tank, the definition in IMDG code is portable tank is a multimodal tank for transportation of substances of class 1 and classes 3 to 9. The same definition is there for portable tanks used for transportation of gas, whether it is non-refrigerated liquefied or refrigerated liquefied gas. Portable tank does not include rail tank, road tank, or IBCs or non-metallic tanks. These are some images of portable tanks. This one is for refrigerated liquefied gases, that is cryogenic tank. This one is non-refrigerated liquefied gases, multiple element gas container. This is listed under the packing instruction in IMDG code, not under tank instruction. IMDG code adopts the recommendations of United Nations model regulations. So the rationale used for usage of tanks for dangerous goods is any dangerous goods which in large quantity pose a higher hazard or higher risk is not permitted in portable tanks for transport by sea. Some of the examples are here: class 1, class 3, desensitized explosives, etc. Self-reactive and organic peroxides under 4.1 and 5.2 is only permitted if it is type F. In nutshell, when we open IMDG code, any entry not assigned with a T code in dangerous goods list is prohibited to be transported by tank unless it is exempted to use a tank by the competent authority of the port state. There are 25 different types of tanks in IMDG code. T1 to T22 is for classes 1 and 3 to 9. T23 is specifically assigned for class 4.1 self-reactive substances and 5.2 organic peroxides. T50 and 75 is for gases, non-refrigerated liquefied or refrigerated liquefied gas. I hope you all are able to hear my voice clear. If not, let me know in chat. These are also tanks. Uh, you see, when we say ISO tank, that is a 20-foot framework under CSC convention, then we call it as ISO tank. IMDG code does not use the term ISO tank. IMDG code uses the term UN portable tank. That is the portable tanks constructed according to United Nations recommendations. If you look at this right-hand side top image, the vertical tank displaying the UN number 3396, that is a special tank, which is actually a T9 tank. T9 is not supposed to have a bottom opening, but this vertical tank has a bottom opening with a special permit from United States Department of Transport. So when we say UN portable tank, it can be any size or shape in a non-ISO, but it has to be in accordance with the chapter 6.7 of IMDG code. The major differences between T1 and T22 tanks are basis the test pressure in bar, shell thickness, pressure relief provisions, and bottom opening provisions. I will run through a couple of slides highlighting what are the major differences between these type of tanks, T1 to T22. If you look into this chart, T1 to T5, T1 to T4 has bottom opening, 2 shut-off devices, 3 shut-off devices, etc. But T5 does not allow bottom opening. Also, T5 requires a bursting disc in series for the pressure relief provisions. So IMDG code in part 4 has listed down T1 to T23, what must be the minimum test pressure for each type of tank, what must be the minimum shell thickness depending on the density of the cargo being loaded, and what must be the provisions for pressure relief and bottom opening. These are all T1 to T22 differences. T11 is the mostly available tanks with the tank operators. T11 has a lot of advantages. T11 got test pressure of 6 bars and 3 shut-off devices. It does not require a bursting disc. When we go to the higher numbers, it becomes more test pressure required, more thickness of the shell, and bottom opening is not provided. Bottom opening is prohibited for highly hazardous substances and corrosive substances which can cause unknown corrosion to the ship structure. In this chart, you can see in the green color T1 to T23 listed. That is a tanks assigned by IMDG code for each and every or whichever UN numbers the tank assigned. If IMDG code has assigned T1, then in the blue color tanks also can be used. So there is a provision in chapter 4.2 in part 4 of IMDG code. If a tank is assigned in dangerous goods list, which other tank types may be used for transporting the same dangerous goods? The other tank types are always having higher safety measures than the tank assigned in IMDG code. In this, when we look at the entire data of IMDG code, all the 2,600 plus UN numbers and tank codes, we will know that T11 tank is the most advantageous tank for tank operators because T11 can be used for more than 1,500 dangerous goods entries in IMDG code. Let's just walk through the important components of the tanks. Most of you who are familiar with tanks must be very well knowing where each component is fitted. This is a standardized 20-foot ISO tanks, whichever components like top discharge, bottom discharge, steam heating, electrical control boards, electrical heating, etc. In case if my voice you cannot hear for 15 or 30 seconds, let me know, maybe some internet issue. I hope you can hear me. Let's walk through each of the major components in ISO tanks or UN portable tanks and what are the requirements of IMDG code, why they are important. Pressure relief. As per IMDG code, any tank which has a capacity greater than 1900 liters must be provided with a pressure relief device. And this pressure relief device must be a spring loaded. It can also have a frangible disc in parallel with it. Frangible disc and pressure relief device is set at a pressure required by part 6 of IMDG code. Whichever tank having a test pressure greater than 4.5 bar, the frangible disc must be set at 110% of 2/3 of the test pressure. For example, T11 test pressure is 6 bar, so PRV, pressure relief valve, is set at 4.4 bar. In case if you want to use a bursting disc, then the bursting disc or frangible disc must be set at 4.8 bar. The way we use this frangible disc, if we use it on T11, if we install a frangible disc on T11, it becomes T12. Flame trap. IMDG code says ISO UN portable tanks intended to carry flammable liquids having a flash point of 60 degrees and below, it must have a flame trap kept on the pressure relief device to prevent the external fire flame to enter into the tank, or the shell of the tank must be able to withstand an internal explosion. Bottom openings. IMDG code has 3 provisions for the UN portable tanks, that is bottom opening 2 serially mounted closers, 3 serially mounted closers, or bottom opening is prohibited. When we talk about 2 serially mounted closers, it is for certain crystallizable solids or normal solids or highly viscous substance. Those dangerous goods require only 2 serially mounted closers. When we come to other dangerous goods, for dangerous goods liquids, IMDG code requires 3 bottom openings. The first one should be a self-closing internal stop valve, then an external stop valve, then what we call the threaded cap. So if this threaded cap is missing from the tank, then it will come out of the requirement of 3 closing mechanism. Emergency shutoff. There is a cable running parallel to one side of the tank. In case if there is an emergency, if we pull the cable, the discharge valve will shut down and it will stop the flow of the cargo. Also, this emergency shut off can have a fusible element. In case if there is a fire engulfment, the fusible element will melt and shut off the discharge valve. Every tank has a document folder which can be used as a good practice by the shippers for keeping a copy of dangerous goods declaration, safety data sheet, and last inspection certificate. So it will be readily available for whoever need to know more details about the cargo. But many times I have found dried leaves and other rubbishes inside that in the practical scenario. Earthing point on the framework of the tank. IMDG code requires an earthing point for grounding the tank to avoid static electricity whenever we load a cargo which meets the criteria of class 3, that is flammable liquid. It must be provided, it must not be painted. If we paint that, electrical earthing will not be, grounding will not be possible. Heating. All the tanks have steam heating provisions. Some of the tanks may have or is having electrical heating pads also. Heating is required when we fill solid cargo above their melting point and allow it to cool down and solidify it during transport. At the discharge point, the consignee can reheat the cargo, change it into liquid, turn it into liquid, and empty the tank. Every tank has a temperature gauge. Temperature gauge will show the temperature in Celsius and Fahrenheit. Solids in tank. IMDG code permits certain solids in UN portable tanks, or what we call ISO tanks, like granular and powdered solids, or solids filled and discharged above their melting point, cooled down and transported as solid mass, or transported at above their melting point. whenever solids are permitted in a tank, IMDG code authorizes the tank with a tank provision TP33 in dangerous goods list. Filling and discharging can be through gravity or through pressure. Those red colored tanks are discharging, and the green color overhead tank and below ground level tanks are for filling. Pressure discharging and pressure filling can be with nitrogen or air pressure, or it can be with electrical pumps. And while filling and discharging, flammable vapors can be vented back to the original tank for safety reasons and for collecting the flammable vapors. Let's look at the type of tanks. I hope you all can hear me still. My audio is not disconnected. Someone can let me know through the chat. There are different types of tank. One is compartment or bulkhead. Compartment or bulkhead is the normally what we see on the road, the petrol tanks and diesel tanks, which has 5,000 or 6,000, 4,000 liters each compartment. Then comes baffle tank. Baffle tank will have a baffle in the center of the tank or two baffles. It is for reducing the motion of the liquid during the movement of the tank. The third one is smooth bore or bulk tank. Now, this has a major role. These different types of tanks has a major role in the stability of the tanks when it is in movement. Surge of cargo is the main requirement for this bulk tank. You can see in this image that right hand side orange color liquid is more viscous than the left hand side blue color liquid. Viscosity is the resistance to flow. Can you hear me now? Okay, you can hear. Viscosity is the resistance to flow. So hence, as per international regulation, that is ADR for Europe and IMDG code for sea transport and all other modes of transport, if a tank is having a capacity greater than 7,500 liters, then the cargo must be, liquid cargo must not be between 20 and 80%. It must be always above 80% or below 20%. Above 80%, also there is a requirement of how much above 80%. This is to reduce the motion of liquid inside the tank during transport. I have tried to make some drawings in PowerPoint. I hope the drawings depict the actual scenario. Like when the tank is in motion, the liquid will move longitudinally and athwartship from side to side, which can affect the stability of the road vehicle. Also, when the tank is loaded on the ship with half full, say 50% or 60%, if the liquid is moving when the ship is rolling, it will put undue stress on the structural equipments of the tank. Many of the, many shippers and couple of the tank operators had asked in the past whether this 80-20 rule is applicable for non-hazardous liquid. Yes, it is applicable for non-hazardous liquid, but it is not mentioned in IMDG code or ADR road regulations, because ADR and IMDG code talks only about hazardous cargo. But when we look at CSS code is Code of Safe Storage and Securing of Cargo on Board Ship. That code says portable tanks should not be offered with an alleged condition liable to produce unacceptable hydraulic force due to surge. If we fill a tank lesser than 80% and above 20%, there will be a noticeable surge between 70 to 80% and dangerous surge between 40 to 60%. So this is why the 80-20 rule is there. Even if it is above 80%, the driver of the vehicle must be trained for defensive driving, and he or she should know the speed limits mentioned on the road is for normal private vehicles, not for commercial vehicles. If the speed limit is showing 80 kilometers per hour for the cars and other normal private vehicles, the the trailer carrying the liquid cargo tank must be driven at much lesser speed than the maximum speed limit shown on the roads.
From the Russian dashcam vault comes this lucky escape. A petrol tanker rolls on a bend and, unbelievably, no one gets killed. The truck driver does have some carpet burn from being thrown about the cab, but that did not stop him trying to get out.
I hope you could see that video playing of a tangle or a capsizing on the road. Let's talk about the degree of filling. Above 80%, there are two formulas in IMDG code part 4. That is 97 divided by and 95 divided by. It is stipulated through the tank provisions TP1, TP2, and TP3 for solids, TP1 and 2 for liquids. How much above 80% can be filled? This depends upon the thermal expansion coefficient of the cargo which is being filled in. For using this formula for calculating maximum permissible volume limit for a tank, the shipper and the tank operator should know the thermal expansion coefficient of the liquid, which is the alpha in this formula. That alpha is the mean coefficient of cubical expansion of the liquid, then temperature of the liquid during filling, and mean bulk temperature during transit, during transport. Temperature of the liquid during filling is always considered as 15 degrees and the density at 15 degrees, and mean bulk temperature is always taken as 50 degrees for the calculation purpose. Cargo mass, maximum permissible cargo mass. It is given on the plate which is fixed on the tank, also in the tank certificate, inspection certificate. Maximum payload should not increase. There is a tare weight, maximum payload, and maximum permissible gross mass. So when we are filling liquid with high viscous liquid or high density liquid, when we do the calculation of above 80%, we must ensure that it must not cross the payload. Also, the total weight of the tank with the cargo must not increase or exceed the weight limit of the roads through which the tank will be transported. Cargo temperature, when we are using heating for melting the solids and pouring into the tank, and at the discharge point again melting it, the temperature range of the shell displayed on the tank plate or in the tank certificate, the cargo temperature must not increase above the maximum temperature or must not go below the minimum temperature of the shell's temperature range. Who are having questions can punch in the Q&A, which I'll be answering at the end of the session. Nitrogen blanket. IMDG code requires nitrogen blanketing of the tank for certain cargoes, wherein the tank provision will ask for eliminating the air with nitrogen or any other means. Other than IMDG code, for increasing the shelf life of the cargo or protecting the tank shell, shippers and tank operators may recommend nitrogen blanket. This is actually, by applying nitrogen blanket, we are reducing the oxygen level or eliminating it. So the cargo and the shell of the tank will not, shell of the tank together with the cargo, and the cargo will not keep reacting with the oxygen for causing corrosion and pitting inside or contaminating the cargo. Marking and placarding. When we fill dangerous goods inside the tank, many times I get a question where to display the proper shipping name, should I display UN number, etc. It is very easy to remember. Column number 1 to 4 of IMDG code dangerous goods list, UN number on all 4 sides, proper shipping name on 2 longitudinal sides of the tank, then class and subsidiary hazard placards, and if it is a marine pollutant, then marine pollutant mark on all 4 sides. Proper shipping name is mandatory on the 2 longitudinal sides, not on the front and rear end, but if you display front and rear end, it is not prohibited. There is a requirement for the font size of the UN number and the proper shipping name also. UN number, if it is displayed in an orange panel, must be at least 65 mm high with a 120 mm height and 300 mm wide orange panel. The orange panel's border, black border must be at least 10 mm black, 10 mm border. Periodic inspection of the tank. Every 2.5 years and 5 years, the tank is supposed to undergo the periodic inspection. 5-year inspection will also include hydraulic test, which is again a last periodic inspection certificate will be issued, and the date and year will be punched on the tank plate on the tank. If a tank is due for next periodic inspection, IMDG code authorized to transport that tank beyond the expiry date of the periodic inspection, provided the cargo is filled in the tank before the periodic inspection due. This transport is permitted only for a period of maximum 3 months. It can exceed in case if you are returning the tank for disposal of the cargo, etc. Also, if the tank is carrying out only dedicated cargo, the same cargo in the round trip voyages, then the 2.5 years periodic inspection may be waived off in consultation with the classification authority, that is a competent authority who issues the tank certificate. Since we talked so much about the tank, I will quickly refer about a special tank, which is helium tank. Helium, refrigerated liquefied helium. The helium's boiling point is minus 268.9 degrees Celsius. Refrigerated liquefied helium tanks are called cryogenic tanks. It will have an external tank with nitrogen, liquefied nitrogen, which will absorb the heat of helium. This helium tank will keep purging the boil of nitrogen during the voyage. So the shipper will calculate the holding time for the entire transit and fill the liquefied cryogenic, extremely cold liquefied nitrogen and liquefied helium in the tank. The hazard of this tank is, in case if there is an uncontrolled discharge of liquid helium or liquid nitrogen, it is extremely cold, cryogenic. So in case if the ship's superstructure is exposed to that, the steel of the ship, the steel will become brittle, and it is a highly health hazard for bringing the oxygen low. That is why these tanks are not permitted to be loaded under deck. It used to be permitted loaded under deck 10-12 years before, but 1 or 2 of the longshoremen in US ports was exposed to the discharged nitrogen with less oxygen in the cargo hold of a ship, and 2 of them lost their lives. Since then, IMDG code prohibited loading the refrigerated helium tanks under deck on the ships. Helium tanks, people are you can hear me now? Someone said I am not audible. Okay. Helium tanks, when it is loaded on the ship, the master of the ship is supposed to send daily 2 reports to the shipper, morning and evening. The master is supposed to send the shipper the ship's name, call signs, etc., latitude, longitude, the weather condition, and what is the pressure and liquid level of both helium and nitrogen. So the shipper can monitor the daily readings of morning and evening and advise the ship staff in case if they need to purge out a part of helium or nitrogen for maintaining the internal pressure. Now let's talk about dangerous goods declaration. I will not go much into detail and hold you back. Dangerous goods declaration, the requirement and mandatory information is given in part 5, chapter 5.4 of IMDG code. The box number 20, the container vehicle packing certificate, need not be signed for tank containers because we are not packing the container for tank, but shipper's signature must be there in box number 22. In case if it is an empty, uncleaned tank, then after the UN number, proper shipping name, hazard class, packing group, etc., the shipper must mention the words empty, uncleaned, or residue last contained. For empty, uncleaned, it is not required to declare the mass of the cargo. IMDG code does not ask for the mass of the cargo for empty, uncleaned tanks, but some of the shipping lines will insist if the shippers declare as 0, because these days everybody works in the software, online software or dedicated company's own software. So these softwares does not allow zero in the gross mass in their software field. As per IMDG code, when we talk about gross mass, the tare mass of the tank is not included in the gross mass for dangerous goods. That is mentioned in part 1, chapter 1.2 of IMDG code. I will quickly mention here the advantages of T11 for the whoever here as tank operators attending this seminar. Most of the tank operators are having T11 tanks. T11 tank is one of the most advantageous tank for the tank operators or whoever owning such tanks, because it can be discharged and loaded from top as well as bottom. And if it is SS316L material, it is compatible with most of the dangerous goods. It can be operated from ground level. And in case if the cargo solidifies with the steam coil, when we start heating up, the steam coils are in the bottom half of the tank. So the bottom half of the solidified cargo will first liquefy. So it is very easy to discharge. And less viscous free flowing liquids with the gravity we can discharge without using any electrical or pneumatic pumps. And for shippers, it is very easy to get T11 tanks. And T12 tank, as I mentioned before, if we fix a frangible disc for T11, it will change into T12 tank. Now we will just look at the liability. Liability is one of the most important thing for transportation. In transportation, there are multiple parties involved in shipment of dangerous goods in tank. If it is not a shipper-owned tank, there is a shipper, there is a tank operator, then comes the carrier, that is a ship, and the vessel's master who is responsible for storage on board ship. Currently and in the past, always that most of the NVOCCs and freight forwarders, what they do is work like a post office. They collect the information from the shipper and just pass it on to the carrier. If the carrier asks for material safety data sheet, the safety data sheet STS, the forwarder or NVOCC will ask the shipper will send it on the email. Without even opening the safety data sheet, they just pass it on to the carrier. Or some of them or some of us will just open the safety data sheet and directly go to the section 14 for transport information without reading other sections. This is a very wrong practice and a very dangerous practice. We should not think that freight forwarders or NVOCC name is not listed or the role is not listed in IMDG code. Because of that, freight forwarders are not responsible. That is a wrong assumption. It had been going on for many decades. After MSC Flaminia's accident in 2012, you can see the photograph here. United States New York District Court's judgment kept the liability of 55% to shipper and 45% to the tank operator. If you look at that judgment, it is a couple of pages, I think 30, 40 pages or 50 pages. If you have the patience to read through, we can understand where the NVOCC, the tank operator, and where the shipper failed in discharging their duties without showing due diligence for the cargo being offered for transport, including filling the tank much before the vessel calling the port or loading onto the vessel, and exposing the tank to daily sunrise and sunset with differing temperatures, which resulted in polymerization and explosion on board MSC Flaminia, which sadly resulted in 3 of the seafarers losing their lives. So that's it in this webinar. One thing I will highlight here, as per IMDG code, it is mandatory for all shoreside people to be trained in IMDG code. Training must be initial training and recurrent training whenever the IMDG code changes. If a shipper or a tank operator is offering dangerous goods in UN portable tanks to the carrier, they must be trained in use of UN portable tanks, calculation, placarding, marking of the tanks, dangerous goods declaration, and security of dangerous goods in transport. This security comes under ISPS code for high consequence dangerous goods in transport. What additional security measures are required for those goods when it is in transport or when it is kept in a port or terminal awaiting for subsequent loading or the consignee to collect. Further information, you can always go on to my website. My website address is my name only, shashikalada.com. There is a separate section on my website for tank, which explains bottom opening, cargo volume, temperature, nitrogen blanketing, placarding, etc. I am throwing it open for questions. Anybody having any question can punch in into the question and answer session option. Also, for your information, on May 28th, 10:00 UTC, I'll be having again a free webinar for segregation of dangerous goods in ports, warehouses, and container freight station. It is registration form is available on my website. Now I am open for questions. Anybody having any question can type in.